Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the zebra print suit. So ever since those party rock guys started shuffling around town, we've seen a lot of teens rocking the zebra print look. And while it might be a nice way to draw attention to your legs and maybe your fresh new clean white Vans, it's not the best look for, say, I don't know, a batsuit. So yeah, back in 1960, we got the pleasure of meeting Zebra Man, who's a villain that uses magnetic lines of force after he created a device that granted him these magnetic powers. So Batman and Robin both got a close-up look at this machine, and maybe Batman got a little bit too close because his suit and skin turned into the same zebra stripes that we saw. So now we have Zebra Batman. The only difference was he didn't have the belt that Zebra Man used, so he wasn't able to control said new powers. And it just looked, well, you know how it looks. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and smash that like button right down below, because it helps us out quite a lot here in the studio. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being fans. Now let's get back to some Batman suits. Number 9, 1940s serial batsuit. So the first ever live action Batman was played by an actor named Lewis Wilson back in 1943. And he was part of this 15-chapter serial from Columbia Pictures and included Douglas Croft as Robin as well. And I'll get into the suit design in just a sec, but let's just talk about the storyline first. I mean, we have the Batman during World War II, and he's trying to take down Agent Dr. Dacca and put an end to his plans. See, this was right after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and Dr. Dacca was operating a sabotage ring in Gotham City. So naturally, it's time to suit up. Now fans look back at the costume design and cringe. I mean, nowadays everything is so sleek and military, so when you see this, it comes off as a little silly. I mean, the arms and legs are baggy. It looks like a bat suit your uncle pulls out every Halloween. You know, the same one he's had for like 50 years. And the belt too? Dude, how the hell are you sneaking up on some crooks when you're literally wearing a disco ball for a belt? You'll blind them before anything. They won't even see you coming. They won't have eyes left. What does it for me personally is the uneven bat ears. It looks like a Great Dane when its ears are taped up when it's young. Number 8, Sir William. This one comes straight from Earth 9, and DC says that this universe still exists, which is pretty neat. So basically the idea was in 1997, DC Comics launched Tangent Comics, which was a new take on our hero's origins. We all love those. So as you guessed from the name Sir William, this Batman was fresh out of the Arthurian times. Sir William was a knight of King Arthur's Round Table who had to pay for some previous faults. See, Morgan Le Fay seduced him and convinced him to fight King Arthur using her magic. So, not a nice guy. He's actually probably great, I don't know. So he was confined to his own castle, which as far as groundings go, not that bad. I mean, I never got to hang out in Castle Bat when I got grounded growing up, so what the hell is this? Sir William discovered that he had the ability to project his spirit into his armor and have it walk free. Kind of like the pair of pants from Disney's Onward, you know, the pants that just walk around? It's kind of like that, except less sad. And as far as Batsuit designs go, this one is just messy. I mean, the spikes on the shoulders are just covering your blind spots, not to mention the added weight, the Mohawk helmet as well. I mean, I think it's gonna be a no from me in terms of design. But he's mastered sword fighting, okay? I'll give him that. He can sword fight, that's pretty cool. We all love swords. Number 7, Azrael. Better known as John Paul Valley, he is a vigilante who resided in Gotham City. See, after Bane broke Batman's back, he took on the mantle in the Nightfall story arc. See, Jean Paul was able to defeat Bane when he stepped up to the bat, pun intended, and he replaced the Caped Crusader. But in doing so, he made more than a few changes to the suit. Technical changes, but also, of course, design. So the final product had him looking like a cross between Batman and like an Autobot. He has the blue and yellow metallic armor, which looks like a hot mess already. And on top of it, he even added other gadgets in, like he added claws, dual mag weapons, and of course, a cape that definitely does not work in terms of, you know, aviation. That's not gonna fly. That's literally not gonna fly. Sure, he made the Nightfall story arc interesting, but if we're looking at just suits here, This takes the cake easily on this list.
Number 6. Eaten by birds. Miss Arrow has a pretty wild death in the comics. For those of you who are unfamiliar or haven't heard of her, that is probably because you know her by a different name, the Other. That is right, Miss Arrow is actually the extremely powerful spider totem entity that is linked to Peter Parker's Spider-Man. As such, she is entirely made up of spiders, despite sometimes appearing to be human while under the guise of Miss Arrow. Because of this, she was at one time killed by a bunch of birds who devoured the spiders that made her up, with Peter squishing the final spider that survived the bird attack. This wouldn't be the end of the Other though, as one more day messed up the whole continuity thanks to reality being warped, with Peter having actually never accepted the Other in this alternate, which is now the main, reality.
Number 5. Being dumb. Magneto in the Ultimate Universe was like the bad guy. He was nuts, and he had the power to back it up, which he proved when he used his abilities to offset the magnetic poles, which put the whole world into chaos. Tidal waves in New York, mega flash freezes in Latveria, volcanoes erupting in the Amazon, all that good stuff. Naturally, the survivors were not happy, and they would be coming after Magneto with a vengeance. They aren't dumb, so of course their attack on the villain would be planned out. Right? Well, it doesn't seem like it was. While all the surviving heroes make their assault on Magneto's fortress, the hot-headed Warren Worthington, you know, the guy whose only power is that he has wings, decides that he is going to jump the gun and come full speed blasting through a window, giving Magneto a good old punch to the face. Magneto could have squashed this guy like a bug in one swift move, but he doesn't even think Angel is worth the effort. Instead, he lets Sabretooth, his mad dog, do the deed. Sabretooth pounces on him, rips one of Warren's wings off with his mouth, and then stomps on the mutant's neck, taking him off the board in one page. Idiot.
And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you love hearing about weird, dumb deaths, well, we have a lot of weird things for you on our weirdest playlist, so go check that out. It's full of weirdness. Number 4. Waking up Fin Fang Foom. Something you shouldn't ever do? Wake up a sleeping dragon, as Jerry Carpenter learned in Hulkbuster Fin Fang Foom issue number 1, which admittedly is a pretty wild and weird story, so if you're into that, you should go check it out. Here, as promised, the two beings end up fighting, but first, we're treated to a story clearly inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing. Probably also why this guy's named Jerry Carpenter. You see what's happening here? Except Fin Fang Foom is the shapeshifter in this tale. For those who don't know, Fin Fang Foom is actually an alien whose race is actually known for their shapeshifting abilities. I feel like not a lot of people think about that, but that is a thing. Needless to say, Jerry finds Foom below the ice and sends for the rest of his team up in the Arctic. They're basically like a research team, but instead of just waiting, he is hasty to proceed because he basically wants to name this newfound finding of what he believes is an undiscovered type of dinosaur after himself. He smashes through the ice with a pick, only to awaken Foom. Foom blasts forth and takes Carpenter for his host, basically wearing him like a skin suit. The really weird thing though is I think this is the only case of Foom like actually needing to do this. He claims he's attempting to rebuild his strength by merging with hosts and is like looking for a real strong host when he runs into the Hulk, but I don't think he's ever actually needed to do that before or after this point ever again. And he can just shapeshift on his own. He doesn't actually need a human host to turn into a human, so there's a lot of weird stuff happening in this comic. But hey, if you gotta make Hulk and Foom fight, I guess you gotta do some weird stuff.
Number 3. Falling on Rogue. Nothing stands up to falling on a woman who leeches life away, unable to pick herself up. Well, falling isn't the right word. It was more like Mr. Sinister was held down. Following the events of M-Day, a mutant named Hope Summers is born, bringing hope to the mutant species. Well, Mr. Sinister, he reassembled the Marauders and planned to control the future of mutant kind by stealing Hope. Sinister knew this and wanted to use Hope to control the mutant population because the mutants can't just have something without a villain trying to mess it all up. Sinister regrouped his Marauders alongside Mystique, who knew that Hope was necessary to save her daughter, Rogue, from her out-of-control powers. Well, Sinister failed to capture Hope, and like an idiot, he informs Mystique that he is unable to help her save Rogue. Safe to say that Mystique doesn't appreciate that very much. She grabs and shoves Sinister's face onto the unconscious Rogue, and unable to get up, his life is sucked away. Now I'll admit, it's a little bit awesome, but in the massive gallery of villains losing their life, it's arguably one of the lamest ones. Imagine Sinister having to tell people about this one when he eventually returns. Embarrassing.
Number 2. Turned into a sundae. I don't actually know if Ice Cream died here, but it certainly seems to be implied that he did. At least to me it does. This is the canon that lives in my mind. Ice Cream was a character who could turn into ice cream. hence his name. Ice cream, get it? He infiltrated the X-Mansion in the first and only issue of Obnoxio the Clown. Speaking of weird comics, that's another one. He wanted revenge on the X-Men because they had cooler mutant powers than he did. Although how he really planned to get said revenge and beat them when his powers only allowed him to turn into ice cream, I'm not really sure. He attempted to turn the danger room on the students, but this plan ended up failing, with Professor X lowering the temperature of the control room to below freezing, which caused ice cream to freeze solid. At the end of the story, Obnoxio the Clown decorates ice cream as a giant sundae, while ice cream's fate is left ultimately undetermined. We never see him again, and it's possible that he literally could have met his end by being mistaken and consumed as actual ice cream at some point later in his life. So, yeah.
Number 1. Just take off the quiver. A lot of the time when a hero's light goes out, it will be in an ultimate display of self-sacrifice, throwing themselves into impossible circumstances in order to save the majority. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, that kind of thing. It's the number 1 heroic move, but it only really works when there is absolutely no other option. When looking at Hawkeye's sacrifice in Avengers Disassembled, there were a whole handful of other options, and most of them were pretty obvious, making for a heroic self-sacrifice that just ended up coming across as incredibly dumb and unnecessary. Basically, Wanda Maximoff has gone completely bonkers and turned on the Avengers, but none of them know that just yet. She's already caused the passing of both Vision and Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and all the Avengers have assembled in order to figure out what the heck was happening. Using her Hex powers, she created a Kree warship to show up out of nowhere and go on the attack. Hawkeye runs off to go get some more arrows, and when he comes back, he goes off, taking out Kree left, right, and center until he is hit in his explosive arrow quiver by an energy weapon. With his quiver on fire and set to explode, instead of just taking it off or firing off the arrows, Hawkeye grabs a Kree with a jetpack and blasts off into the warship, blowing both it and himself clean off the battlefield. Just silly.
Number 10. Pink Elephants. Now of course I have to start off with one of the most wild issues. It's titled Pink Elephants. It's issue 212 of Green Lantern Corps, but don't let the name fool you, there's no weird elephant stuff in this one per se. So we have Hal Jordan, and he's being eyed down by Aricia Rabb. See, the only thing is, Aricia is only 13 years old. Young love, classic. Way too young though, way too young. Hal Jordan is of course not 13. So she uses her power ring to make herself appear older, but it's still not okay, you know? You know, that's like 13 going on 30, but Hal Jordan knows that it's actually her and she's making herself look older. That's gross, that's super gross, and also super illegal. Ayo, Aricia's like, oh, I love you because you're the most handsomest man I've ever met, and because you treated me as a real Green Lantern even though I was so young, and because you couldn't keep from calling me honey. And even Hal Jordan's like, oh, okay, I didn't say, let's stop there, let's just chill. Don't say it out loud, please. Gross. Even saying it out loud here is just, yuck. Number 9, Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman has one of the funniest lines on a comic book title page ever. So we have Robin, just regular old Robin, and a baby sporting the mask and the cowl, and the businessman on the cover is like, look out, it's Bat Baby and Robin. Like, I love the stutter that he does too. He's like, look out, it's Bat Baby. Like, he kind of like has to take a second to realize what he's looking at, which is kind of like us too. We're looking at the thing like, it's a Bat Baby, I guess. Yeah, debit, let's do it. And the weirdest part is, he still has the abilities of a full-grown Batman. So Batman and Robin get up close to Nails Finney and his gang, and then Batman sees Garth, the renegade scientist. Garth! Turns out Nails brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a small child. Very small. The headlines were amazing in the news that week. Gangland turns Batman into baby, and the photo is just Batman all moody, like, it's the best. Robin at one point even has to carry Batman to the Batmobile. So what does Batman do? He embraces it. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby, I'll become Bat Baby, let's do it. He does well though, or he does okay rather. One of the headlines that you see next reads, Bat Baby does okay for a kid. That's it? Just okay? Like, I mean, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up in the air like 40 feet and then fought off 3 crooks, but he did okay for a kid. He was okay for a kid. Yeah, he had to ride a balloon because his legs were so small.
That's the sound I make when I'm trying to run fast.
I don't think we'll ever get this comic on the big screen, but who knows? I mean, we got Scott Lang as a baby in the last Avengers. Maybe DC will really go for it and have a Bat Baby make a brief cameo, we're hoping. And number 8, Bat Witch. This one's a classic. Released in 1969, issue 186 of The World's Finest, we find Batman in a bit of an odd situation. So, Superman and Batman at this point have traveled back in time to solve a mystery of a broken bust that resembled Batman. They're like, alright, let's go back in time, figure this out. So they go back and they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now, Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft, and she's in trouble. So Superman helps her stay afloat, and then Batman swims beside her to shore, right? What a good team. Two nice guys, classic. And then she thanks Batman by kissing him right on the lips. Ooh-wee. And then Superman goes to introduce himself, and then Batman interrupts and takes her to the local bar. Oh shit! So Superman decides to use this era in his favor. So he dresses up as Batman and starts like floating around and doing like all this crazy witch stuff. So much so that the town deems him a witch. So Batman is about to be burned at the stake. He's got like his hands and his head, he's stuck in the whole scenario. And then a thunderstorm rolls in and everyone's like, ah, is it raining? Can't be doing any of that. And then they leave. They don't want to see a guy dressed like a bat like get killed. They think he's a witch, but they're like, you know what? I didn't bring my umbrella, so can't do it this time. Next time. We'll get him next time. Let's head out. Everybody leaves except for, you guessed it, Ben Franklin. Yeah, he was there. He actually tried to help free Batman with one of his experiments, you know? But Superman doesn't let that happen. He puts his hand in and stops the electricity. So Ben Franklin thought that he could use electricity to like blast open the shackles. Not today, not with Supes involved. Eventually Ben Franklin's like, all right, you're on your own. I don't know what's going on here. And then when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, figure it out yourself. So next time your friends start flirting with your crush, just frame them for witchcraft. It'll work, trust me. Number 7, Monkey Business. We go now to Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Volume 1, Issue 116 to be exact. This issue came out in 1968 and I don't think we'll ever see this on the big screen. I hope so, because if we do, I'm walking out of that big screen. The cover alone is enough. It shows Superman flying, saying, Jimmy, what's got into you? Why are you acting like an ape? And then the actual ape on the cover is like, because he's an ape, Superman, yeah, I'm the real Jimmy Olsen. We switched bodies. Yeah, they switched bodies. Apes are so strong also. Like, have you seen Planet of the Apes? Caesar just like rocks dudes off of buildings like it's no problem. There's no way he would be holding a camera. That camera would explode in his hands in a matter of seconds. Like, they're so strong. So after a malfunction of a machine, yep, they ended up switching bodies. So Jimmy Olsen's body starts, of course, literally screaming like an ape because the ape is stuck inside. And the real Jimmy Olsen, he's stuck in an ape body. And the dude, he just embraces it. He buys a green suit, he even has a cool hat to go along with it, and he continues working. Like, what a champ. He even says he'll be a simian sensation. The guy loves it. Editors, insert link. So of course somebody walks into the office and they're like, holy shit, there's a gorilla. We have to call the zoo guards right now. This can't be in here. And then Jimmy responds with puns. He's like, holy cow, I guess I'll have to explain what this monkey business is all about. Like they're gonna be like, ha, good one, Jimmy. No, like that happened in real life. That dude would be put to sleep with a dart so fast. Number 6, Orca the Whale Woman. Imagine if when Robert Pattinson's Batman came out, this was the story that we got. I would laugh so hard. So we go now to Batman issue 579. So imagine you're on a yacht, you're just chilling, right? You're hanging with your friends, having some drinks, feeling good, looking good, showing off your fancy $6 million necklace, and then bam, a whale woman just blasts into frame and rips it away. She's like, don't let her, give me that necklace. Like, first of all, so scared. Bruce is shocked. He's like, miss, can you please return that gem to its rightful owner? That'd be great, thanks. And of course the whale doesn't cooperate, so Bruce heads to the Gotham Aquarium to ask some questions. He meets Grace Baleen, who is a woman bound to a wheelchair who works at the aquarium. She gives the whole rundown on orcas and how they fight other whales that are 3 times the size of them, and how she's working on this research project with orcas, but the funding, of course, is not going well. So you probably figured out what's going on by this point. She spends her time robbing from the rich, and instead of keeping that wealth for herself, she donates it to charities. Not a bad idea. She ends up becoming an orca forever, but that doesn't last long, don't worry. She's killed by an operation ran by the Great White Shark in Detective Comics issue 819. A lot of sea drama in that one. Under the sea, we have a lot of murder. Under the sea. No dancing crab choreography included. Number 6. Oh yeah. Number 6, Batman Forever. Of course, on a list about batsuits, we must bring up the suit that changed our childhoods forever. The one with the bat nipples. Sounds like a Friends episode that didn't make it. The late Joel Schumacher did Batman Forever in 1995, and Val Kilmer was a pretty fun Batman. Jim Carrey was a pretty fun Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones was... It was the 90s, okay? It was weird. The weirdest detail of this version of Batman's suit has to be this. I mean, we don't need nipples on the suit. We just don't need them. We don't at all. Even if they did somehow help with chafing, they would have to be perfectly lined up all day. I would be fixing that every 15 seconds. He said he sent costume maker Jose Fernandez photos of Greek statues and opted for more of an anatomical look. Hence the, shredded abs. And then when he saw the nipples on the suit, he thought, that's cool. Those right there, those some cool nipples. And he's still glad that he did it to this day. Well, so are we, because now we can talk about it some more in this lovely list. Number 5, Batman and Robin. Another late Schumacher film. Okay, another suit to talk about. It's kind of hard not to talk about the costume details when it shows all the details very close up. I mean, some of the shots we get here, I swear I can smell the fabric. Like, imagine if 3D was this advanced back then. Oh my god. You'd look in your popcorn and find Robin's ass. You're like, how did this get here? The suits changed from Michael Keaton's version, yet somehow they got worse? It got worse. So now George Clooney was rocking this hard plastic nipply looking suit, and even better, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl and Chris O'Donnell as Robin sported the same design near the end of the film. Just in case, one new suit wasn't enough. I get it, I mean the new suits are supposed to prevent against frost damage, all that jazz, but how much damage protection do we need down there, guys? I mean, I know you're George Clooney and all, but like, that's a lot of armor for, Number 4, Jim Gordon. So after the events of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Endgame storyline, we found a new home for the Batman cowl. This time around, it belongs to former police commissioner Jim Gordon. See, his initial batsuit is actually pretty neat. It complements his lanky body, the all black look with the dark yellow outlines, and no cape. Thank God, I'd rather have Batman with no cape than a cape that looks like it got shredded by a velociraptor. Any day. I'm a fan of his entire look here, okay? Now, if we did a list of the best Batman suits, I would for sure throw this one on there. Now, unfortunately, he also has this military suit that he uses over top of that already existing cool one. They purposely designed it so it wouldn't look like Iron Man, and that worked. I mean, mostly. So the powerful armor got the job done, but it looked clunky. It didn't look nice. Fans didn't like the giant bunny ears, and they could for sure go without the War Machine type missile shoulder pads. Great storyline again, but seeing him disappear into that armor brought a frown to my face every time I turned the page. Number 3, all of the colors. So in 1937, issue 241 of Detective Comics, we find Batman on the cover with quite the dilemma. It's a dilemma we're all probably used to by now. He changes up the colors of his costume quite a few times in here, but why? Maybe he wore a similar color the day before, or hey, maybe on Wednesdays he wears pink. You never know. Or maybe this has something to do with the Comics Code Authority. See, in order to appeal to the public eye that comics weren't just this dark and gritty thing, they tried to change up his outfit a few times to keep it fun. Hey, it's pink now, look, we're having fun. So in this issue, we have Robin hurting his arm, but we also have Batman sporting some fun new colorful suits. Eventually, just putting all the colors together and rocking the infamous rainbow suit, which I'm a fan of. If you can't pick one color, pick them all. Let's go. The only reason I have to include the rainbow suit on a list about the worst Batman suits is because it hurts your eyes to look at no matter what page it's on. See, some sequences show Batman punching a criminal and the yellow background blends in with the yellow part of his costume. Same goes for any background color really. Like, if I was standing here in front of a green screen with all the colors on, green would just be really hard to focus on. It would blend in with the background. It's why we don't wear green in any videos, because it looks like that in the background. So the rainbow outfit was thought to be left in the late 50s, but it made a fashionable return in Francis Manapul's Trinity issue 1. Number 2, Stan Lee's Batman. The late Stan Lee had his take on the Caped Crusader back in 2001, and DC Comics asked him to reimagine all their famous heroes as if he had done it himself, which sounds like a pretty exciting event. So he came up with Wayne Williams, a cross between Luke Cage and, of course, Bruce Wayne. And we see these in action in Just Imagine Volume 1. So he was convicted of a crime he didn't do, and then learned a few skills in the slammer while he was serving. And then when he was released, he first made a costume and tried to make some money wrestling. Okay, sounds familiar. Homemade costumes, some wrestling. If you're into a Batman that looks more like an actual bat, this is a great place to go. And finally, number 1, Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman, right on the cover, we see regular size Robin rocking a regular size Robin outfit, and then we see a Bat Baby with a Bat Baby suit to complete the picture. Look out, it's Bat Baby and Robin? Question mark? That's what a bystander is shouting right on the front cover and all. So what's going on here? Why is Batman wearing jean short overalls? Why is he a baby? Also, why is he a child? Turns out Nails Finney brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a small child. Little baby. What's even better about this whole ordeal is that he still has the strength of a full-grown Batman. So he can kick your ass. He's just tiny. And the headlines were amazing in the news that week. Even in the comic, it says, Gangland turns Batman into baby. And then the photo is just Batman all moody standing there like, I don't know why he's moody, like he's still the same Batman, he's just small. Actually, you know what? I do know why he's moody. He's an infant. So Robin at one point even has to carry Batman to the Batmobiles, like carry him, because his little fat baby legs can't get him around so fast. So what does Batman do? He embraces it. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby. That's what you want, that's what you get. And he does well, or he does okay, rather. Yeah, one of the headlines that you see next reads, Bat Baby does okay for a kid. I mean, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up into the air and then took out 3 criminals as a baby, but definitely just okay, A-okay. The only soft spot on this Batman is the one on the top of his head.
Number 10, Mark 1 Model 3. Okay, I want to get it out of the way right now that I am in no way talking smack about the design of the original Iron Man suit. I mean, although it was bulky and cumbersome, it's absolutely an iconic design, and more importantly, it was built with a purpose. Tony found himself in a bad situation and needed to escape, so he built an armor out of any materials available to him. Makes absolute sense. The quote-unquote upgraded gold version of this suit, however, not so much. Tony decided that the gray color of his armor was far too scary, or I guess he was kind of told that because the biggest inspiration for this redesign came from a date with Marion Rogers, who told Tony that Iron Man could really use a nice paint job, so that he'd better resemble a knight in shining armor. Tony obviously took this to heart, and the gold armor was born because he thought it would make him a more approachable hero. This design obviously didn't stick around for too long, as not long after he adopted the first iteration of the classic red and gold color scheme that the world now knows so well and loves. Fun fact though, the gold-plated armor is actually the reason Iron Man has the nickname the Golden Avenger. Check out the Mark 1 in its first appearance in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 39. Number 9, Mark 33 Submarine Argonaut. The Mark 33 armor isn't the first deep sea variant of the Iron Man armor, but it is pretty bad if I do say so myself. It is one of the 5 different Iron Man armors that Tony created from the Argonaut series, developed to augment his extremist-based armor technology. The Submarine Argonaut was a yellow armor that had clawed hands and feet, was capable of a little bit of camouflage, and had a deep sea range of about 2,563 meters. Basically, it was a pressurized suit that allowed Tony to operate in the deepest depths of the ocean. Now why is this a dumb armor, you ask? Well, mostly because Tony never actually got around to using it, or any of the 5 Argonaut suits for that matter. The armors were instead triggered via remote when the son of Ho Yinsen was shot and killed by SHIELD forces. This armor then attacked Namor and was later destroyed by Iron Man himself and left to sink to the bottom of the ocean, and has not been seen since. It was just kinda left there. Check out this sad underwater armor for yourself in its first appearance in 2006's Iron Man Volume 4, number 7. Number 8, Heroes Reborn. In 1996, Marvel created the controversial Heroes Reborn event/storyline in an attempt to reboot some of their characters. Tony Stark was no exception, and he was reborn in a new universe where he was even more of a selfish jerk than usual. And when he was wounded in an attack, Tony took up a special suit of armor to become a hero. Referred to in the storyline as the promethium armor, this rather unique looking suit was exclusive to the Heroes Reborn universe and honestly wasn't too well received. While most of Iron Man's armors tend to be clean and simplified in appearance, the Heroes Reborn armor took a different approach, with steel cords, lots of tubing, and 2 just massive exhaust pipes on the back that allow the armor to release heat. Though just a prototype, Tony was required to wear this armor's chestplate at all times in order to keep his heart beating and his lungs functioning properly. The suit didn't have an arc reactor and had to constantly be recharged in order to keep pumping. Overall, this armor was overly bulky and not visually appealing in the slightest. Instead of the more streamlined direction the armors had been going in, this one takes a step backwards, adding in musculature and separate plates that made it just way too complicated. Check it out for yourself in 1996's Iron Iron Man Volume 2, number 1. Number 7, Mark 52 Hulkbuster car. Now if you're not familiar with this armor, don't worry, I also didn't know it existed until today. The Mark 52 is actually just the Mark 44 Hulkbuster seen in the MCU, but unlike the MCU's take on the comics Hulkbuster, this suit was also a car for some reason. Yep, that's right, what looks just like a simple flying car is actually a fully functioning Iron Man armor that could be deployed from the push of a button. Now in its vehicle form, the armor can achieve flight with the use of 2 repulsor turbines on its bottom, and then by pressing the button on the car's panel, the entire thing transformed into a Hulkbuster armor in a matter of seconds. It's basically just a transformer. This marked the first time a suit of armor in the Marvel Universe continuity was adapted from the MCU. While certain artist depiction of the Iron Man armor Mark 42 included a helmet design lifted from the standard Iron Man helmet outline used in the MCU, the Mark 52 is the first armor with a design taken straight and entirely from the films. Now why Tony decided he needed another Hulkbuster at this point in time is beyond me, because he certainly was not fighting any big bad guys. But also why he thought it needed to be a flying car as well just makes absolutely no sense. Like, he really wasn't struggling for any money because he had just sold Stark Tower at the time, and I don't know, maybe he just wanted to see if it was possible. Either way, check it out for yourself in 2016's all new, all different Avengers number 1.
Number 5, the Suicide Snare. This issue was released with Action Comics Volume 1, issue number 592, back in 1987. The cover of the issue, first of all, is enough to draw you in. It shows Superman with Big Barda, like, you know, with her. They're making out, and who's in the background? Mr. Miracle, just watching the whole thing. He even says the line, "Superman and my wife?" Those lines are laid across the cover, so what's going on? Well, Mr. Miracle goes home one day to find Darkseid just chilling on his couch. Immediately asking where Barda is, Darkseid gives him a tape to play, which may be the scariest moment of my life. Like if Darkseid was like, "Here's a tape," I'd be like, "No, I don't have a tape player. What did you do? What did you do? Oh god, it's gonna be so bad." So he clicks play and sees Big Barda dancing for sleaze. They don't show it, but it's implied that it's sexual in nature. Like, you know, I don't know why I did that. So Sleaze takes mind control Barda and Superman to an adult film director. Yeah, his name is even Grossman. Like Grossman. His idea is that the adult film is going to make so much money that basically it can pay for an army to go against Darkseid, which is a pretty, worth a shot. So in comes Mr. Miracle to save the day, releasing the two from Sleaze's mind control. Whew, that would have been a real awkward brunch if Mr. Miracle didn't show up. Quite the miracle if you ask me. Number 4, Super Lion. This 1958 Actions comic grabbed readers' attention in the 243rd issue when the title page showed Superman as a lion, and the headline was "The Lady and the Lion." So you have to open it, you just have to. So after Superman uses his telescopic vision, he sees trouble. Trouble in the form of a young lady on a Mediterranean island in danger during an earthquake. So Superman flies over and saves the day. He soon realizes by the rubble that this is the Temple of Circe. So it wasn't actually Circe, it was the next rendition of Circe. And she ends up making him consume this potion while demanding him to marry her. Nice pitch, not bad. "If you do not come back to me for the antidote before the next dawn," she continues, "you will turn into the creature you most resemble by nature." See, if that was me, I'd turn into like a toad or like a little turtle or something. Something just kind of like, you know, something not the best. So as fate has it, Superman becomes a lion. Yeah, his lion's heart and strength made him do the whole spiel. It could be a lot worse though. The Man of Steel ends up working at the zoo and he ends up playing with people. Like, he has a pretty good time. Really dumb concept or best idea ever? I don't know, I'm kind of in the middle. Let us know in the comments. Would you see this in theaters? Superman as a lion, just like putting people's heads in his mouth? Let us know, I kind of would. Number 3, Superman vs. Muhammad Ali. You gotta love it. This one-shot made its debut back in 1978, written by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. It featured the Man of Steel and, of course, Muhammad Ali. So what's going on? How is this a real thing? Well, it was part of an all-new collector's edition numbered C56. So basically, this alien named Ratlar, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth and demands that we pick our best fighter to go against theirs. Nice. So their best fighter being a behemoth named Hunya. And if we refuse, well, the Scrub is just gonna destroy the planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman isn't technically from Earth, he must be the one who fights. So Ratlar is amused by this, so he wants to know who's the best. So he pins up the two champs against each other, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Now of course you're thinking Superman would toast this guy, hands down, no competition. Well, the fight is set to take place on Bodace, which is orbiting a red star, so that means there's no powers for Superman. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a boxer, like a human boxer. And cue the Rocky Balboa music. So they start training in Superman's Fortress of Solitude, throwing proper left hooks, you know, the whole thing. Might as well train without powers, right? So the unlikely duo are given 24 hours to train, which is just unreasonable. But by using a time warping device, they're able to train for a couple of months. Rattler figures out the device is being used and boom, training is over, boys, nice try. So the fight is broadcasted intergalactically and thousands tune in naturally. I mean, Superman puts up a good fight, but ultimately Ali is the greatest boxer to ever live. So Supes goes down. And now Ali has to fight Hanya, even predicting which round he'll go down by. Now of course Ali doesn't hold up too well against an alien at first, but he eventually knocks him out of the ring in the 4th round, just as he said. Take that, bucko. Boom! Number 2, ants. Yeah, ants. Coming at you from Action Comic Volume 1, Issue 296, The Invasion of Ants. It's as dumb as it sounds, or maybe brilliant, I can't tell. The cover alone is super weird and kind of inviting. It shows Superman on the side of a building, but he's got like an ant's head. So off the bat, I'm pretty curious what the hell's going on. He's even saying the words, "Follow me, soldier ants, buzz buzz buzz. We must capture Lois Lane, buzz buzz, she will be our queen." Okay, you got it, man. So after a colony of giant ants was mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come check out Earth. So Superman uses red kryptonite radiation to give himself an ant's head. Not a mask, important to say, like a head. He has an ant's head. He's got an ant's head, guys. And he communicates with them with that head. This is like the ultimate amalgam character. Like, Superman even explains how bad this could get if murder ants roamed the city, as if we didn't already know. It even has a photo of ants like lifting up the Empire State Building and like, so as long as Superman focuses on maintaining an ant's head, he can communicate with it. Similar to how Krypto turned into a collie. If this was a live action movie, people would light the theater on fire. There's no way he's like, buzz, buzz, buzz. Everyone's like, no, I'm leaving. You weren't ready. We're not ready for this. And finally coming in at number 1, the New Guardians. So back in 1988, DC had a short run with one of the best villains ever, Snowflame. So what makes Snowflame so strong and wild is cocaine. This guy even says the words, "Cocaine is my god," on the first page. The New Guardians have trouble. Of course they have trouble. His every cell burns with white hot ecstasy. In his words, not mine. Ram attacks and it doesn't do much. A blow like that would have sent an ordinary man reeling, says Snowflame. Would it be funny if he was like, a blow like that can't work against a man on blow, and it was like, and just rocked him. Yeah, he even says the more you fight back, the more you fan the fires of my high. This is a real thing. I mean, this could be a live action movie. Just like an old jack dude on coke, just boxing the Justice League.
Number 10, Zeitgeist. We're talking all kinds of all-around dumb with this character. Zeitgeist was a member of the early 2000s version of X-Force that we'd come to know later as X-Statix. In fact, he was their leader. For those who are unfamiliar with X-Statix, it's a publicized superhero team who mainly performs heroic deeds for the paycheck and the ratings. When it comes to Zeitgeist, he's one of the worst of the lot, to be honest. Axel Clooney's mutant-based powers cause him to vomit acid, something that first manifested during a romantic night out with a girl in the midst of them kissing. Not only are Axel's powers bizarre and quite dangerous, but he also doesn't seem to be a great team leader, to be honest. In fact, he even at one point conspired with Coach to have almost his entire team killed. And even then, this plan backfires as Axel himself gets killed during the rescue attempt, although he would later be revealed to have miraculously survived the incident and would of course return. Comics. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that subscribe button? Get all those notifications, baby! Number 9, Squirrel Girl. You know how much I love Squirrel Girl. Doreen Green is one of my personal favorite characters, but even I can admit how ridiculous she is. For this list, we're going to be considering a few different takes on the word dumb, by the way. We're going to interpret it as both unintelligent in terms of a character's purpose or creation, characters that are seemingly so bizarre that you might consider their existence, their very existence, or their power set dumb. We're also going to consider heroes who have been treated in a dumb way in terms of how they were utilized and stories sort of involving them. And finally, we'll also just be talking about one or two real dum-dums, which are honestly pretty rare when it comes to heroes in the Marvel Universe, cause many of them are actually super geniuses. When it comes to Squirrel Girl, she is a mutant who was introduced as a major fan of Iron Man and the Avengers, but whose mutant power set involves her being able to communicate with squirrels, in addition to a physical mutation which makes her somewhat resemble one. She got a big bushy tail. I love you, Doreen, but admittedly, you are pretty ridiculous. Number 8. Squid Boy. I kind of feel mean calling Squid Boy dumb, but what I really mean to say is that he was kind of like squandered in my opinion. The way he was dealt with in the comics I think was just kinda dumb. Allow me to elaborate. Sammy Perret was pretty much the reason that Juggernaut actively worked towards becoming more of a heroic figure. Sammy was a big part of Juggernaut's redemption arc. The two met when Professor X, en route to the mutant school with Sammy in tow, headed off route due to the fact that he was unable to psychically reach the X-Men. They were found to be joined with Juggernaut in a battle against Black Tom, and at one point Sammy saved Juggernaut's life during this fight. This created a bond between the two, which was shattered when Squid Boy stumbled into a meeting with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Juggernaut was working undercover, posing as a member, while really working as an informant for the X-Men at the time. However, Sammy didn't know that, and when he stumbled into the meeting, he accused Juggernaut of being a traitor before Black Tom just killed Squid Boy. This would break Kane's heart and start him down a path that would ultimately lead to him becoming a villain again. Although even then, the death didn't serve to get him there like overnight or anything. This took quite a while, but I would say it was used as a little bit of a catalyst to give him like less ties to the heroes and just like set him on that path. And honestly, I just think Squid Boy deserved better. He was kind of like a really cool and important character, especially for Juggernaut, so kind of feels like he got fridged a little bit. Number 7. Bird Brain. Bird Brain is like something out of a fever dream. He is horrifying to behold, but even though on the surface he might seem dumb, see his appearance and his name, Bird Brain, he actually has a really tragic and awful story. He was actually a prisoner of the Animator and was experimented on, being a creation made as a result of experiments in genetic splicing, where human DNA was spliced with animal DNA. Eventually, he would seek to freak the other experiments and become the leader of these animates. But boy oh boy, that character design, I'm just saying. Bird Brain, just look at him. Doesn't look like a very bright character, does he?
Number 6. Ablative Armor. This is another one of Tony's armors that wasn't supposed to be dumb, silly, or weird, it just kind of turned out that way. The Ablative Armor was a prototype space armor designed for an impact-heavy environment. It's made up of tiled pieces that could be manipulated by a force field to dynamically protect him from projectile attacks, while also being used as ranged weapons as well. Basically picture those bicycle helmets that were specifically designed to break on impact, as a way to absorb the shock of the crash and thus protect the bicyclist's head. That's the sort of design Tony was going for with this armor, made entirely of little tiles that are designed in such a way to, you guessed it, break on impact. Once a tile is broken, it pops off and another one slides into its place, and new tiles are constantly being generated. And they're even capable of separating from the armor and, kind of just doing their own thing. There's no doubt that it's a unique concept and might be one that Tony would come back to later on, but it's a little bit clunky and overall just a little nightmarish to look at. Take a look for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2003's Iron Man Volume 3, number 71. Number 5. 1602 Armor. I think that everyone can see what Neil Gaiman and Adam Kubert were going for with the Iron Man design from the 1602 miniseries. It is a steampunk-esque design from the Middle Ages, and that sounds like a great idea on paper, but in execution it's actually very over-designed and somehow more complex in the Mark I armor. In the world of 1602, Anthony Stark is Lord Iron, a man who was taken captive during the Anglo-Spanish War and forced to make weapons, after being subjected to torture by this universe's version of Bruce Banner named David Banner. Later on, after Banner becomes the Hulk, Stark is summoned by the King of England to track Banner down. Needing some sort of protection in order to survive, Stark dons his iron armor that is powered by lightning bottles that provides him with super strength and near invulnerability alongside a couple other fun electricity powered gadgets. Stark eventually found the Hulk, and despite his pleas for forgiveness, Stark continued to attack him until a much bigger threat forced the two of them to team up. With a busy paint scheme and design, the 1602 armor ends up making Iron Man look a bit like a Doctor Who villain, which probably wasn't the intention, and that is why it's on this list today. Check it out in 2005's Marvel 1602 New World number 2. Number 4. Mark 6 Hydro Armor. So usually whenever Tony has to go underwater, he just dives right in and the armor protects him. However, in a few cases, Tony has had to dive pretty deep into the ocean, and obviously the pressure could crush even a regular armored suit with ease. So Tony wound up creating a special armor built to withstand those pressures, which became the Mark VI Hydro Armor. The Hydro Armor has all the standard features of the regular Iron Man suits, but reconfigured to be more effective underwater. That means there's carefully adapted repulsor beams, more life support, grapples, a feature that fires an underwater electric shock, and the ability to release an inky chemical like an octopus. The armor is treated with lights and a bioluminescence to allow Tony to see in the pitch darkness of the oceans. It's also maneuverable enough for Tony to handle fighting whales, sharks, or the Submariner himself. He doesn't use it as often as other armors, but this suit proves Tony can handle pretty much any environment pretty well. Now, why is this armor dumb, you ask? Well, like I said, he doesn't use it too often, but also because he's wearing armor just inside another armor. You can imagine how uncomfortable that would be, and honestly, you'd think with those seemingly endless resources, he would just make one that just did everything. Check out the first Hydra armor in 1987's Iron Man number 218. Number 3. Mark 19 Skin Armor. Now it seems to me that Tony Stark is really into that whole metal but make it weird concept when it comes to his armors, and that is definitely seen in one of his earliest experiments with that concept, the skin armor. This suit was made of an adaptive liquid alloy that could simultaneously become as hard as adamantium and yet stay flexible enough to bounce and bend comfortably. It's a super cool concept and made for a pretty badass suit since it featured some upgraded versions of Stark's existing tech and was able to be controlled remotely. However, the way this suit formed is actually what makes it a rather dumb design. Basically, the flexible alloy only formed the gold sections of his armor and would only harden or form around the red parts on command, meaning that Tony would be running around like looking half dressed most of the time, which is pretty ridiculous. Check it out for yourself in 2001's Iron Man Volume 3 number 42 and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 2. Iron Lantern. Hailing from Marvel and DC's Amalgam Universe comes Harold Stark, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark, who acts as a hero under the name of Iron Lantern. In this reality, Stark was injured after an alien ship crashed into Earth, and in an attempt to stay alive, he made an armor out of the wreckage of the ship, using the Lantern power battery he found as the power source. This suit not only allowed him to survive, it also granted him all of the powers of the Green Lantern. Using these newfound powers, Stark was operating as the Iron Lantern and took down many powerful enemies such as Madame Sapphire, Great White, and of course his arch nemesis, Mandarin Estro. Now, I want to get it out of the way that I love the Amalgam Universe. I've talked about it in so many other videos, but honestly, this hero just isn't doing it for me. Iron Man's calling card is that he's just a man, but with that ring, the iron seems pretty redundant and kind of eliminates the humanity imbued into Tony Stark. Check it out for yourself in 1997's Iron Lantern, number 1. And number 1, the Sniffbuster. Now you're probably sitting there like, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist. And I mean, technically you're right since I completely made up the name, but it'll all make sense once I explain the suit a little bit more. For a period of time, Iron Man's armor had a big old nose on the front of it. The true story is that Stan Lee, upon seeing an Iron Man cover, made an offhand comment asking, hey, where's the nose? Meaning that he thought the helmet just looked a little bit too snug to Tony's face for a nose to fit. However, this comment was misinterpreted terribly by others as meaning that Stan wanted a nose on the armor, so it ended up being added. They forced an in-story explanation for the iron nose, with Tony stating that he redesigned the mask to allow for a bit more expression, which would thus increase the fearsome aspects of his character. To no surprise, no one in the Marvel Universe bought it, and many characters remarked how ridiculous Iron Man's nose hole made him look. Luckily, the nasal armor was relatively short-lived and has not re-emerged since. Go take a look at it for yourself in 1974's The Invincible Iron Man number 68.
At number 10, we have the Rainbow Batman suit from Detective Comics number 241. This is the suit where we get to see Bruce Wayne's fashionista persona as he gets to fight crime in all sorts of different colored suits, from green to purple to yellow to white to red, which on the cover looks more like a neon pink to me. And of course, rainbow. Now, you might wonder why the Dark Knight would want to wear all these costumes, but as always, when it comes to Batman, the explanation is purely logical and slightly convoluted. See, the Bat Diva did this in order to draw attention towards himself and away from Robin, who earlier had performed a heroic act as Dick Grayson, pushing a girl out of the way of a speeding car and injuring his arm in the process. And since Batman don't believe in work from home culture, and to his credit it is the 50s, he takes the money he would have spent on Robin's paid leave and cops himself some new fancy outfits so that no one would pay attention to Robin's arm and realize his secret identity. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a quick solid and support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Goes a long way. Thanks guys. At number 9, we have Raven's New 52 redesign from Teen Titans number 17. Raven's original cloak is simple, elegant, and iconic, and so to recapitulate that essence for the New 52, they took all that and put it in the garbage and just went, Raven? Needs feathers. Listen, I know she's supposed to be gloomy and mysterious and whatnot, but covering her face completely is stupid, and what they covered it with looks ridiculous. Not to mention the whole bird theme as a whole is severely uninspired. And also the knee pads. Why does she need freaking knee pads? Heck, if you're gonna take it that far, you might as well throw in some elbow pads, shin guards, and a jock strap for good measure. Morons. At number 8, we have Cyborg Spider-Man from Spider-Man number 21. This is probably the most 90s Spider-Man costume out there, though I wouldn't be surprised if one of you guys in the comments proved me wrong. Solo nearly ended Spider-Man, believing him to be Doc Ock thanks to an illusion cast onto him by Mysterio. But Peter was rescued in the nick of time by Cyborg X, who took him to Care Labs to get fixed up, where he would awake with a new metal cast, an eyepiece, and some stitches. He was even gifted a utility belt, though Spidey never puts this one to use. And while the original version of the Cyborg suit is disbanded fairly quickly, probably on account of it being so hard to look at, it's worth mentioning that a Pete from a different timeline decided to go all in with the cybernetic enhancements, leading to a truly cyborg Spider-Man whose costume is seriously done right. We're even gonna get a fresh take of the character on screen in the next Spider-Verse movie with Cyborg Spider-Woman, and I'm all about it. Well, save for the spiky shoulder guard. Personally, I feel it's a little bit out of place, but maybe we'll get a good enough explanation for it in the movie, but probably not. At number 7, we have the Superman Unchained armor from Superman Unchained number 7. Okay, look, we can all agree that the Unchained armor is undoubtedly badass looking. That's not my point here. My gripe is the fact that Superman's wearing it. You see, Cal dons the armor when he realizes that he's vulnerable to attack from the weapons wielded by General Lane's army. And the suit, which comes with a hammer and shield, is able to withstand a few blows that supposedly would have one-shot the Man of Steel. Okay then, so why does he need a shield? He is Superman after all, it's not like he needs anything other than his fists for combat. Or better yet, why doesn't he just ditch the suit altogether and just keep the shield, as it proves to be far more effective at sponging blows from Lane's weapons than the armor is. And don't even get me started on the hammer, which is literally only there to rip off Mjolnir. Not to mention how uncharacteristic and lazy it is of Superman just to put on thicker armor when a greater threat presents itself. Because it would have been much more satisfying to see Superman outwit his opponent instead of just out-tanking him. Like, okay, DC, listen up. Maybe you can use this design for some sort of Thor, Darth Maul, Megazord hybrid character, but Superman, guy doesn't need it. Give it to someone else.
Number 6, Dupe. I love Dupe, but even I can admit what a weird, dumb character he is. We don't even really know Dupe's true origin. We don't even know if he's a mutant, but that hasn't stopped him from quickly becoming one of the most bizarre X-Men related staples. His powers are pretty much completely unlimited, and while I am including him on a dumbest list, in Dupe's case I actually don't mean intellectually dumb, because one of his powers is actually having a genius level intellect, so he's actually like hecka smart. But the fact that he's pretty much Silver Age Superman when it comes to him just having whatever wild power is needed and is able to do just about anything makes him completely dumb in terms of him being just like absolutely ridiculous. Add in that he looks like a small floating kind of flying pickle with arms, or I guess he kind of looks like Slimer from Ghostbusters if you prefer, and yeah, I just mean like what is this character? What a bizarre character. Still, I love him for how ridiculous and dumb he is, so that's not to say that, you know, being dumb is always a bad thing. Number 5, Hellcow. I really hope we get Hellcow in Deadpool 3. Hellcow is such a weird character. What a gloriously dumb character. Hellcow is a vampire cow that was created by Dracula, who, reminder, does exist in the Marvel Universe. One night Dracula was flying around and he got thirsty, but all the villagers had, you know, retired for the evening, gone to bed, and they were pretty smart and superstitious enough to board up their homes and protect themselves and their necks against vampires. As a result, Dracula decided to feast on the blood of livestock, and he drained poor Bessie the cow. Her owner would find her the next morning and bury her, even giving Bessie her own little gravestone that he could visit. However, she would soon thereafter rise brave as a vampire cow as a result of that experience, joining the League of the Undead and Immortal and seeking revenge on Dracula for what he had done to her. So, Hellcow. Number 4, Maggot. Maggot is definitely one of the weirdest characters around. He is a guy who has 2 maggots that basically like make up his stomach, his digestive system, named Eenie and Meanie, who can detach from him and eat just about anything. In doing so, they also kind of power Maggot up. Because his powers are so strange and unique, he rarely gets much time in the spotlight, which honestly kind of sucks, because even though Maggot might seem dumb in terms of like his powers, and I'd agree with you there, he's actually a more interesting character because of that. That's the thing with dumb characters. Dumb characters are just these glorious little weirdos that you're like, that's kind of dumb, but like I also kind of love it. Number 3, Alpha. Alpha is a character that none of us really needed and that literally is not very bright. He is Andy Maguire, who for a while attempted to become the sidekick of Peter Parker's Spider-Man after a freak accident different than but similar to Spider-Man's left him with superpowers. His powers, however, were not insectoid in nature, but instead allowed him to create hyperkinetic energy, being able to basically tap into this energy and channel it from universal forces. That's kind of where it's explained is coming from. And he would take the name of Alpha and would be trained by Spider-Man himself, but was reckless, and as such would end up soon after having his powers removed by Peter, who basically didn't believe that Maguire was responsible enough to have and use them. He'd get them back later, but I just mean, that just goes to show you, not necessarily the smartest hero. Number 2, Hindsight Lad. Hindsight Lad has to be one of the worst heroes in all of creation. What is his power? He can retrospectively see how people mess up and then like point it out to them. Who wants to hang out with that person? How about no one? Also add in the fact that this isn't actually like a superpower or anything like that. It's just a thing that Hindsight Lad does. In fact, Hindsight Lad has no powers to speak of because he blackmailed his way onto a superhero team. He found out that Robbie Baldwin, his neighbor, was secretly superhero Speedball from the New Warriors and threatened to reveal his secret identity unless Robbie would allow him to join the team. Talk about a piece of work. Eventually, Carlton Lefroy would drop the Lad from his name and just be known as Hindsight, and he would act as the New Warriors kind of like guy behind the computer, but he still acted as a general nuisance to many of his teammates. During Civil War, after the Stamford, Connecticut massacre, Carlton decided to actually blame the New Warriors and used his intel to expose all their secret identities, doxing them on the internet, and also doxing himself, because he was also on the team and he didn't want to seem suspicious and reveal that it was him doing it, but just shows you how terrible he is. Number 1, Grey Hulk. This is the first version of the Hulk to exist. Well, Bruce Banner's Hulk anyway, we're not counting Zebnu here. Grey Hulk as such is literally one of the dumbest around, and Hulk himself is not usually a hero known for his smarts. His connection to Bruce Banner aside, Grey Hulk is literally one of the dumbest there is. So yeah. Also sorry Hulk fans, but you know it's true. You know that Hulk is not usually the brightest bulb in the bunch.
Number 10, Martian Manhunter and Fire. Now I'm not gonna lie, I am also not the biggest fan of fire either, and I would absolutely hate being set on fire for so many reasons. But for such a powerful hero who can shapeshift at a molecular level, change his entire genetic makeup to let him pass through solid objects, withstand ferocious attacks, or bend light waves around his body, it just seems a little silly, right? Not to mention that he comes from Mars, otherwise known as the Red Planet or the Fire Star. So why is this one of his biggest weaknesses? Well, long before Martian Manhunter even existed, a race of aliens known as the Burning caused some serious damage with fire in order to create their offspring, which, needless to say, people weren't too happy about. After the Guardians of the Universe separated the offspring into the White Martians and the Green Martians, they were all imbued with a congenital pyrophobia, aka a fear of fire. So it kind of makes sense why he's so afraid of it. Not only does it physically hurt him, but it also scrambles his most prized weapon of all, his mind. This fear and weakness is so intense that when he's exposed to flame, he has the capacity to self-destruct, either combusting into bits or dissolving into rivers of Martian liquid. Want to know more about the Martian Manhunter? Well then check him out in his first appearance in 1986's Justice League of America, number 255. Number 9, The Flash and Being Too Fast. At first, I've gotta say this one confused me so much because that's kind of the Flash's whole thing, right? Well, when it comes to Barry Allen, his speed might be his greatest strength, but being too fast puts his life in mortal danger. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, we see the Flash use his super speed to thwart the Anti-Monitor's evil plan, but the speed vortex he creates to stop the villain's antimatter cannon from firing is so fast that it sweeps the Flash away along with it. He ends up being stranded for 23 years in the Speed Force, you know, that mystical energy field that gives all the speedsters their powers, and spends that whole time running and trying to figure out how to get back. Basically, what happened is that Barry ran way too fast for his body to handle and he atomized himself. Thought to be dead by his closest friends, including Wally West, who took up the Flash mantle in his absence, Barry's apparent death was a huge shock for everyone, and also entirely his own fault. Check out more of The Flash for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1956's Showcase, number 4. Number 8, Power Girl and Raw Materials. You'd think that being weak to kryptonite would be their only weakness, considering how easy it seemed for people to get their hands on it. But Kara Zor-El from Earth 2 actually had another pretty big weakness at one point. They were vulnerable to unprocessed natural materials such as branches and rocks for a short while. This also includes stone, dirt, and sand. Basically anything that can be found on Earth that isn't man-made. In Peter David's Supergirl Volume 4 number 16, she gets knocked to the ground and impaled by a pretty big tree branch, which in her defense would put anyone on the ground. Supergirl helps yank out the branch, and with this weirdly sociopathic smile on her face, she asked, "What, are you vulnerable to wood?" It took a second, but after she was no longer in pain, she replied, "Worse, to any raw, unprocessed natural materials. So, sticks and stones really can break my bones." God, dumb joke and even dumber weakness. Check her out for yourself in her first appearance in 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 5. Number 7. Adam Strange and Forced Deportation. Who knew that archaeologists could also be superheroes? Well, apparently Adam Strange did, because that is exactly what he is. He inadvertently found himself on the planet Ran and was gifted with all the powers of a superhero in Mystery in Space. And it's not exactly explained why. Sounds pretty great, right? I mean, what could possibly be his weakness? Well, it's not actually his fault or in his control. This life of bliss he lives on Ran is frequently interrupted by his rather inconvenient transportations back to Earth, where he has no powers at all. The technology responsible for bringing him to Ran, the Zeta Beam, only allows him to remain there for as long as it's transmitting back to Earth. And as it takes the beam a few good years to reach Strange's home planet, it's not exactly easy to catch a ride back. Strange might have been recruited as Ran's savior, but his timing issues really make this role more of a temporary gig. He could be midway through his heroics before vanishing without a single trace. He even left his wife to nearly get eaten by a tiger once. Luckily, as Alan Moore's Swamp Thing series clarified, the Iranians are more than capable of looking after themselves when Strange isn't around, and thank goodness for that, because I wouldn't be relying on Strange much either. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with 1986's Outsiders, number 6.
At number 6, we have Iron Man's nose from Iron Man number 68. There's change in the air. I can smell it. One of the most iconic examples of a redesign gone wrong, we have that period of time where Tony Stark thought it would be a good idea to include a nose in his mask to make him look more expressive and help strike fear into the heart of his enemies. Buddy, the only thing you're striking me with is an intense desire to laugh in your face, because let's face it, the addition of a big metal nose ain't exactly intimidating. Now you might be wondering why Marvel would even give him a nose in the first place. Well, the story goes that one day Stan Lee was complaining about one of the studio's new artists. See, Stan thought that Tony's eyes were too close to the surface of the helmet for there to be any room for a nose underneath the mask, and so Stan asked, "Where's his nose?" The editors took this to mean that Iron Man should have a nose, and so they gave him one. That is, until Stan caught wind of the change a few issues later and demanded that the editors change it back. At number 5, we have Hawkeye's tunic in Avengers number 72. Good lord, dude! Pants! Not only is Hawkeye one of the bravest Avengers on account of him being super powerless, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with Earth's mightiest heroes in what's effectively a dress is a whole new level of courage. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions that led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath, who sports an equally decisive costume, that one including those redundant bolted shoulder and waist straps. Sorry to say, buddy, but this fit just makes you look arrogant. Arrogant? No? Okay, I tried. At number 4, we have Captain America's exoskeleton, debuting in Captain America number 438. On yet another edition of Why Does This Hero Need a Whole Suit of Armor, we have Captain America. And while his excuse is a little better than Superman's, it's still pretty lame. You see, Steve Rogers became completely paralyzed by an illness brought on by the very super soldier serum that granted him his superpowers in the first place. And so in order to allow Cap to continue his crime-fighting career, Tony Stark fashioned him this exoskeleton. And after getting some implants that would enable him to operate it, Cap was back in action. Now, I've included this one on the list because the whole concept is a bit ridiculous. I mean, super soldier serum induced paralysis just makes the serum itself completely redundant. Like, if you wanted to give Cap an Iron Man suit, just give Cap an Iron Man suit and do away with the whole degenerative disease nonsense. I mean, Spidey got an Iron Man suit, more than one, and he didn't need to get paralyzed to earn it. At number 3, we have Plaid Daredevil. Okay, this next one is seriously cruel, and if you laugh, your soul is going straight to Mephisto. This panel comes from What If Volume 2 number 17, the comic that asks, what if Daredevil had a dishonest tailor? To which Kingpin and Punisher are seen laughing in his face. See, I think this is dumb, not because of the plaid, although it is pretty ugly, but because it's uncharacteristic. You see, Daredevil wouldn't have gotten ripped off. He can't. He can literally smell fear and dishonesty. It's what makes him such a good lawyer. So either this universe's Daredevil is missing one of his most crucial hyper senses, or he's Canadian. Either way, it's nothing to laugh about. At number 2, we have Hulk, the Horseman of War from Incredible Hulk number 456. That's right, not only has Hulk been a villain, an Avenger, a space gladiator, and the conqueror of entire planets, but now we can add first non-mutant war horseman of the apocalypse to his resume as well. His armor, made from celestial tech, allows him to accomplish feats of strength with ease, which the irregular Hulk would probably find at least a little strenuous, like picking up and tossing an entire Egyptian pyramid, for instance. His helmet also has the added bonus of calming his inner demons, allowing the Hulk to become more cold and calculated. And if I'm being honest with you guys, the real reason I included this costume on the list is because it makes Hulk look like a jacked version of Marvin the Martian. Am I the only one who's made this connection? Can't be. And at number 1, we have Manga-verse Black Panther, who made his very first in-costume appearance in Marvel Manga-verse Eternity Twilight. The Marvel Manga-verse has plenty of questionable redesigns. I'm looking at you, Spider Gloves. But when it comes to the King of Wakanda, boy oh boy did they do him dirty. See, instead of utilizing the vibranium of his homeland to build himself a super suit, T'Challa of Earth 2301 seems to have replaced his sacred herb powers with the spirit of Kwamatha, transforming him into a furry. As if things weren't furry enough with Tigra around, who, after watching T'Challa transform, immediately gets the heart-shaped eyes for him, anime style. Okay, look, maybe I wouldn't have so much hate for the suit if there was a suit to begin with, as the king's suggestively shaped loincloth leaves very little to the imagination, and the bat ears. Ugh, why is he the only anthropomorph with hyper-realistic ears? Now if you made it this far without gouging your own eyeballs out, then give this video some love. And hey, if there's a dumb costume you know of that I left out here, feel free to let me know down in the comments and I'll be sure to include your suggestion in the next iteration of this list.
Number 10, shot by a diamond bullet. This is actually a pretty smart way to deal with Emma Frost, but all in all a pretty dumb way for her to die when you kind of read it on paper. Both makes sense and doesn't make sense. I mean, Emma Frost has a diamond form, which makes her pretty much indestructible, for the most part anyways. So how does one defeat her when she's in her diamond form? Apparently by exposing the flaw in her diamond form and using the same material to kill her. How do you shatter a diamond? With another diamond, apparently. I don't know if that would actually work, but comic book science. Emma's diamond form is her secondary mutation, and while we've seen many attacks on her defended by this form of hers, apparently a diamond bullet can just insta-shatter her. I mean, I've heard of diamonds cutting diamonds, but never necessarily being used to completely shatter a diamond. If shot at her exact weak point though, apparently this is just what a diamond bullet can do, which is something one of the cuckoos, Esme, knew about and exposed to kill Emma, mind-controlling mutant Angel Salvador to carry out the execution. Don't worry though, Jean, while merged with the Phoenix, managed to bring her back with Beast's help. Jean can do anything.
Number 9, taken out by the Punisher. Some of the most creative forms of transportation to the afterlife come at the hands of Frank Castle, the Punisher. But at the end of the day, Frank is just one seriously messed up guy. A normal guy with a good chunk of training, a hell of an arsenal, and a little bit of creativity. He is not a match for a lot of the incredibly powerful beings out in Marvel Comics, but somehow we have the Punisher kills the Marvel Universe story. When his family were taken out by being bystanders of a superhero conflict, Frank is given the backing to take out all those who call themselves superheroes, and my god, a lot of these deaths make no sense, because of course they don't. He takes out the Hulk by waiting until he is Bruce Banner again, but that's never how the Hulk has worked in Marvel Comics. He took down Dr. Doom, with his only excuse for winning being that Doom stopped to give a speech, which does kind of make sense, but the worst example comes when he takes on the mutants. By the sheer will of lazy writing and Frank's throwaway explanation of manipulation, all the combined X teams are having their final battle against Magneto, Apocalypse, and their unholy alliance of acolytes and evil mutants on the moon in an air-sealed dome, which is where Frank drops a nuke on them, taking them all out. Ignore the fact that a good chunk of those here would be able to survive that kind of attack, and we're all good.
Number 8. EMP versus Phoenix Force. This has to be one of the most ridiculous ones. The Phoenix is typically known as being an unstoppable, undefeatable entity. I mean, the first time around, the only way that it was able to be defeated was basically by self-sacrifice. However, that hasn't stopped people from somehow banishing it or straight up killing the entity. Case in point, when Magneto defeated Jean Grey as the Phoenix by administering a powerful electromagnetic pulse, which gave her a planetary-sized stroke. Literally, those are the direct words from the comic. That is some major comic stuff right there. Only in comics would that happen.
Number 7. Being a part of X-Statics. Lots of deaths in X-Statics were stupid, but that was the point. The whole thing was a bit of a satire on reality TV. The team itself isn't exactly one of the premier mutant teams out in the world, and that's putting it lightly. The members of the team aren't exactly the most impressive. The original team made up of mutants Zeitgeist, who has the power of super puke, La Nuit, who has dark force powers, Battering Ram, who was a big purple goat looking man, Plasm, who had liquidy water powers, Gin Genie, who could create earthquakes depending on how much she drank, and Sluck, who is basically a squid. They went by X-Force, which as you may know shares its name with a much more impressive team. But all those original members, minus 3 of them who I didn't mention, and Sluck, who was blown up by a tank in South Africa, all got completely decimated in spectacularly embarrassing fashion during a rescue mission to save a pop music boy band named Boys Are Us. Turns out their demise was actually planned by the team's manager, coach, and its leader, Zeitgeist himself, because they thought a team with a constantly changing roster and high body count would gain them fan interest. The team managed to go on with pretty horrible results. There have been 28 members of X-Statics who have passed away over their history, with only 9 of them surviving. So yeah, don't ever join this team.
Number 6. Human Torch and Asbestos. Now, don't get me wrong, Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, is a force to be reckoned with. Not only can he create, absorb, and manipulate fire, which is pretty awesome on its own, but his Nova Flame is hot enough to vaporize the particles of anything in his way, whether it's a bullet, a building, a bad guy, etc. Interestingly enough though, his powers can't seem to penetrate asbestos. Now this doesn't seem like much of a weakness now, given that asbestos is now banned across most of the world, but back when the Human Torch was first created by Stan Lee and Ernest Hart in 1963, it was a much more common thing, as it was used to insulate pipes and wires, soundproof rooms, and even make cheap garden furniture. In Strange Tales number 111, Asbestos Man came into play, dialed up Johnny Storm, and arranged a showdown between the two. The Human Torch wasn't really all that into it, but he agreed nonetheless and showed up completely underprepared. Asbestos Man used his super asbestos suit, a fire retardant shield, and a fisherman's net to go toe to toe with the Human Torch, and he wreaked havoc on the Human Torch until he developed mesothelioma and needed an oxygen tank to stay alive. Moral of the story, kids, is always prepare for anything, and please, don't breathe asbestos. Check out more of the Human Torch's story, starting with 1961's Fantastic Four, number 1. Number 5. Wonder Woman and being tied up. Superheroes don't come much more kick than Wonder Woman. She's an extremely skilled warrior with enough power to take on the gods and win, and she's shown time and time again that she can hold her own in the world of comic book heroes. However, the Golden Age Wonder Woman was bound by an interesting Amazonian rule that really did not work in her favor. Known as Aphrodite's Law, it states that when an Amazon girl permits a man to chain her bracelets of submission together, she becomes weak as other women in a man-ruled world. This gender-specific weakness lasted from Wonder Woman's debut in 1942 right through to the mid-80s, when DC finally retconned this out for good. This weakness is less literal than metaphorical, meant to demonstrate Marston's argument that women are only vulnerable to men when they choose to be. But still, I am very glad that this was gotten rid of for good. Check out Wonder Woman more for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 1942's All-Star Comics, Volume 1, Number 8. Number 4. Gladiator and Self-Confidence. Cal-Arc, aka Gladiator, is arguably one of the most powerful comic book heroes ever, gifted with planet-shattering strength, super speed, heat vision, frost breath, and a few psionic abilities as well. He's a superhero anyone would love to be. However, even though he is loved, he never really learned to love himself, and that is sometimes his biggest downfall. Although low self-esteem isn't exactly fun for anyone, trust me, I know, for Gladiator it's actually a fatal weakness. His power fluctuates according to his confidence, as seen in Dan Abnett's and Andy Lanning's War of Kings crossover in 2009. Get him to doubt himself or even his abilities for 1 second and he can be defeated by opponents with far weaker abilities than him. A prime example of this is shown in War of Kings number 3 when Rocket Raccoon manages to convince Gladiator his gun will hurt himself and despite withstanding far worse in the past, succumbs to self-fulfilling prophecy and is beaten. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with 1977's X-Men number 107. Number 3. Daredevil and Loud Noises. Now we all likely know this, but Matt Murdock's loss of vision took away the natural gift of eyesight that we all take for granted, and replaced it with echolocation, an uncanny radar sense that allows him to basically see things through sound. Unfortunately for many heroes, their greatest strength can also be their greatest weakness, and such is the case for Daredevil, as his extreme sensitivity to sound can completely incapacitate him. In Daredevil Volume 2 West Case Scenario, he is subjected to a high decibel ultrasound, 120 decibels to be exact, by the dastardly Purple Man, who knows his weapon is excruciating for a man of Daredevil's gift. Daredevil's head spins and he looks like a man under a sorcerer's spell, leaving him completely vulnerable to a follow-up attack. The same can actually be done using intense smells as well, since his sense of smell was also heightened after losing his eyesight. Although Daredevil can and does go toe-to-toe with pretty much anyone in a fight, he will get utterly emasculated by a stink bomb or a supersonic sound. Check out more of Matt Murdock for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1964's Daredevil number 1. Loud noises! Number 2, Green Lantern and wood. If you're a bit confused, that is totally okay. This is not a weakness that is common across all of the Green Lanterns, it's specific to the very first Green Lantern, Alan Scott. Despite being armed with a magical ring and a spectrum of pretty much limitless powers, Scott seemed to have another fatal weakness other than the color yellow. He first realized that this might be a problem for him after he was hit in the face with a wooden log, and then after a series of wins and victory laps, Scott realized tree bark might be his potential undoing. Put a little more succinctly, items made of wood cannot be lifted or broken by energy from the ring, nor can barriers of emerald energy stop projectiles crafted from wood. Apparently this vulnerability to wood was because the green flame was an incarnation of green growing things, and thus could not be turned against them. Guess you could say he, can't get wood. Check out the first Green Lantern for yourself, starting with 1940s All-American Comics number 16. Number 1, Captain Marvel Jr. and his own name. Poor Freddie Freeman. Out of all of the weaknesses on this list today, he probably drew the shortest straw because his weakness is his own name. If Captain Marvel Jr. tries to introduce himself to a superpowered ally, or for some reason feels the need to say his name in the middle of a battle, he'll instantly be transformed back into Freddie Freeman, a ordinary young lad who relies on a crutch to walk. Or if he speaks his superhero alias aloud in the guise of Freddie Freeman, he'll transform into a shimmering beacon of muscly justice and give himself away. Jerry Ordway tried getting around this flaw during Captain Marvel Jr.'s sporadic appearances in Teen Titans between 1995 and 1998 by having Freeman refer to himself as CM3, since he was one of the 3 members of the Captain Marvel family at the time. Also, he could avoid accidental transformations, but that change didn't really stick around. Honestly, for someone who inspired many of Elvis's onstage looks, that is one weakness that I don't know if I can overlook. Check him out for yourself in his first DC appearance in 1995's The Power of Shazam, number 3.